So please excuse us, guys, if the audio is a little wonky. Good faith, I don't think I'll be monetizing this. Probably not, but, well, there's a lot of sensitive issues, so let me be upfront. If you're totally new, I guess keeping it very blunt and simple, that what Mike Rinder, Aaron Smith-Levin, and yes, Nora put out is a very Hollywoodified history of Scientology. You know, you got to make money, and most people do want fame. So, and again, we can get into more of these issues down the road. I've already done a ton of videos on these things. But essentially, Rinder, Aaron, and Nora projected some kind of fantasies to be consumed. Keeping it very brief, Rinder died last year. Aaron and Rinder had a falling out. And for a while, Aaron and Nora, who knew each other for about several decades, were united against Rinder, but then they had a falling out too. So that's the very brief background. If you're just getting into Scientology/anti-Scientology, this will seem very confusing. So please put questions below. I will try to answer as best as I can. So what is the controversy? Well, essentially, and it's very hard because it's a long, complex history. I've already done a few videos on this, but so apologies to the old subscribers. I will try to be very brief. Essentially, Mike and Virginia were asking for help because they perceived, and I don't believe this myself, by the way. I do think they proved this, but I'm trying to be generous to both sides. Mike and Virginia perceived they were the victims of fair gaming. Fair gaming is a policy that Scientology does to critics to basically, well, destroy them. So they felt kind of betrayed by many other, quote, anti-Scientologists. I don't think those people are anti-Scientologists. They're just fake activists. But in any case, they were asking for some help. And Nora responded, as she usually does. And to be fair, it was not just Nora. Nora and her family responded in a very ugly, brusque manner. A few years ago, the McLaurys have all documented on this. Period. It's documents, receipts, it's all finished. It was really a bizarre episode. So when Nora decided to break off from Aaron last year, she did this very strange commentary-style video revising the history of Scientology, and she touched upon her past encounter with Mike and Virginia. And I was there. I was there in the chat, by the way. I will just make one small note that it seems she committed intellectual theft because she literally commented on one specific episode, which I commented on months earlier. But I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, she made it seem as if she was doing groundbreaking research. And I'm like, no. But she basically revised the history of what happened with her, Virginia, and Mike. So let us get down to business. What is the problem? Well, there are two issues. And again, people may not believe this. So I want to have to give background here. Me and Virginia, I think it's fair to say, have been friendly on Twitter for a while. I think, to my knowledge, Mike gave me a very nice comment on this channel months ago when I was sick, which I was, so I appreciated that. But my main communication has been with Virginia. We have communicated elsewhere because Mike, Virginia, and myself were for a while supporting Dana on her channel, the Rotting Jewels channel. This is now, I think, over a year ago. And we were fairly friendly in the chat. I don't think me and Mike ever really directly communicated with one another. I think me and Virginia did communicate a couple of times, but that's a long time ago. Anyway, so those are basically the history of our communications. No phone calls, no emails to my knowledge, so on and so forth. So this came out of nowhere. I was not given any forewarning or said, hey, we're going to give you something to comment. No. So apparently this has been in the background for a while, though, and they have provided, again, a lot of documents and receipts. The basic gist is apparently Nora, being Nora, was slandering and insulting the GoFundMe. Basically what happened is the McLaurys were doing a GoFundMe with Lauren, a supporter of theirs, and Zero Dark Tony was helping out. He was not directly a part of this, but because Nora doesn't like me, yes, I was dragged into this, me or Zero Dark Tony, she insinuated that Zero Dark Tony stole the money. In other words, money was raised, but Zero Dark Tony stole it. No. The GoFundMe, as far as I understand, was legit. Money was raised, not a lot, but what little money was raised was handed over to McLaurys fairly legitimately. But Nora insinuated that some fraud happened, basically impugning, again, Mike and Virginia and Zero Dark Tony, as well as the GoFundMe. But as far as I know, it was what it was. Funds were raised legitimately because they were in a financial difficulty, to put it mildly. They seem to be in a better place, but, reiterating the obvious. If you guys can help me fund my research, and if you can help them with their research, please support whoever you can. Go to their channel. It's very good. It is very conspiracy-centric. If you're not into that stuff, it may be hard viewing, but I find it very valuable. I don't agree with everything they put up there, but it's a very serious attempt to get into the darker history of Scientology. Okay, so that's the legality. There's also a more difficult thing about philosophy, history, and metaphysics, which may get a little boring, but let's keep it simple. Basically, that Nora's lying. She's literally reversing the history of what happened, painting herself as a victim on three major issues. So one, she's like, in this controversial video I'm talking about, which she's now put behind a paywall for $500 or $499 to be exact. And she's done this with a few of these videos too, by the way. So that's pretty suspicious. So legally she may be safe because now she's hidden her accusations, but there we are. So she did offer, I'm going by memory now, in the course of that video, because again, Virginia does have timestamps, but I'm going with my memory, that she offered to have a conversation with Mike and Virginia, but she wants it to be respectful. In other words, the onus was on Mike and Virginia to be apologetic, even though it was Nora insulting them. But yeah, okay, that's one weird reversal. And she did bring up some concerns, which is where I get involved. So she brought up, she's very concerned because Mike and Virginia had an association with Zero Dark Tony, which they did, and to my knowledge, they basically separated. Zero Dark Tony was supporting them and promoting their channel, and he helped broadcast a really good video that Mike made on the inner workings of the Guardian's office. For those who don't know, basically the Guardian's office was the precursor to OSA. They are not the same thing. They are very radically different. A lot of people get those things confused, thinking that OSA is just, you know, the GO point two. That's not how things work in Scientology. That's not even how things work in history. It's a separate organization. Maybe the better analogy is like the OSS becoming the CIA, but even that's probably stretching things. Anyway, it's a very powerful video, which Zero Dark Tony did give it a signal boost. So they were friendly for a while, but they did separate. But Nora, being Nora, thought that's very alarming to Mike and Virginia that they had this association, and that made them bad people, apparently. And apparently this is literally, yeah, she put this out there that me, because they had some association with me, ergo cogito sum, they're not trustworthy. She didn't even specify why it's alarming that we have this association. This association is no more than I comment sometimes friendly on their tweets or videos, and sometimes they comment friendly on my comments and videos and tweets. It's not a deeper relationship. Not that I don't want a deeper relationship, it's just that is where the relationship is. She doesn't even say why this is bad. It's just we have this association and that's bad. Okay? What does that mean? I have no clue. So for those three reasons, namely, they were really nasty to her. That's not true. It was the other way around. Also Zero Dark Tony. Okay, that relationship was dissolved. And then there's the association with me, and I will plead yes, me and Virginia have been friendly. Although, to put it mildly, we do not agree on everything, to put it mildly. And we don't always talk about only Scientology or anti-Scientology. We talk about other subjects. Let me just leave two clarifying notes. One is that, because it'll seem a little confusing, because I will put out several videos critical of Dana rotting jewels. Dana proved that Nora's a liar. But now Dana has a better opinion of Nora. Okay, that's her right. That's her prerogative. The two videos that are very critical of Dana, I've already done the audio recording, were done independent of this. They were done before this. This is technically an audio recording after those two audio recordings. So people might think, oh, well, I like Virginia a lot. I don't like Dana. No, that has nothing to do with it. Those are separate topics. But people may infer a connection. No, I just got this a few hours ago. The recordings with regarding Dana, those two recordings were done prior to me finding this out. So those are separate subjects. Also one final note. And again, I think good faith. I don't think the McLaurys are trying to rope me into a controversy, but just as a matter of methodology, I do not like looking at any private info, period. I will make exceptions to the rule, of course. I think this is an exception to the rule, but generally speaking, I do not like getting any private information from anyone about anything. That is your private information. That is not info for me to see or look at or judge. So unless it's something very alarmingly illegal or something that needs to be brought into the public, there's no other option. I don't care. I don't care what it's about. You can share it with me. I'm not going to do anything with it. I don't think that's valid. That's just me. So that's the rule, because if my private information ever gets out there, I have a simple defense all the time, anytime, namely, I didn't do that to you. Don't ever do that to me. Period. I don't care what the hell the private information is about. Don't do that. But there are exceptions to this rule. So this is an exception. I don't like doing this. That has nothing to do with the McLaurys, has nothing to do with Nora. I just don't like doing that. I don't like getting into people's personal information, and don't get into my personal information. I don't like it, period. I don't like it. It's very disturbing to me. And the people in the SPTV community frequently violate privacy rights all the time, and I find them very questionable for doing that. But it is an exception to the rule. If you want to consider me a hypocrite and not worthy of support, there you go. I'm not throwing shade on anyone, especially the McLaurys. I understand why they're doing it. I'm just saying, as a methodological rule, I usually don't do anything with that stuff. But this is an exception to the rule. Make of that what you will. If you have some questions about this very puzzling affair, which I don't think is puzzling to me because I know a lot of the background, but you might be a little overwhelmed, just put questions below. I'll try to answer things as best I can. Thank you for listening. Bye.